MECHAPHILE by Shaggy Vincent. It's the 7th of February 2018. My name is Jake Noto. I'm 29 years old, for God's sake. I spend the vast majority of my time eating pickled onion flavoured crisps and masturbating furiously over stupendously graphic pornography. These are major contributing factors to my decision to kill myself. That's exactly what my suicide note should say. I think to myself as the electric bus silently motors its way down an insanely busy high street at peak time. I try my hardest to ignore the platter of undesirables laid out around me. Headphones blare, tablet computers shine and buzz, and conversations meander pointlessly over morosely mundane topics. I sit amongst it and stare silently and unflinchingly into the back of the robotic driver's head. I watch him coldly and calmly navigate his way through screaming taxi drivers and seemingly blind pedestrians. He never once loses his cool, never goes off program, never has a wayward algorithm, never drinks a bottle of vodka and punches himself into unconsciousness, like some poor souls. I wince and gently massage my swollen eye, swollen from drinking a bottle of vodka and punching myself into unconsciousness. Metal bastard, I think to myself, and slip seamlessly back into a daydream about my beloved ex-girlfriend Sarah at the centre of a frenzied bukkake in a seedy backstreet car garage. I really am going to have to Google how to make a noose at home as soon as I get back, I ponder somewhat cheerfully. The bus reaches my stop and I thank the robotic driver. He offers me a pre-programmed corporate thank you in his digital voice and swishes away, taking with him the fetid air of everyday people. Metal bastard, I think again as I drag my feet down a dirty Wolverhampton street, mind numb and body vacant. Robots had been driving buses, operating heavy machinery, plumbing toilets and building houses for years, ever since the government made any kind of manual labour illegal as contrary to health and safety law. Humans were useless pretty much. We basically do paperwork, cook food and grease the machines. There are jobs for people who want them. I've got one and it makes me dream of nooses. Things used to be okay. I used to have a girlfriend. She was the one, my soulmate, my dream woman. At least until I got drunk at a brother's wedding and tried to piss in an Evian bottle during the ceremony. My fully loaded bladder sent a jet so strong it hit the lip of the bottle and created a Catherine wheel effect which showered an impressive percentage of the congregation in rancid piss. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, to be honest. Now I spend my evenings trawling porn sites for girls that look remotely like her and mournfully pleasuring myself, pausing only to stir my pot noodles. These days you can buy a robot that will clean your home and cook your meals. But I don't want a cybernetic domestic goddess. I want a fucking vagina. I catch my reflection in the window of a parked car and try to honestly calculate, all paranoid bullshit aside, my exact chances of attracting an attractive woman based on my current aesthetic condition. Sleeping pills would be easier, I think, turning away and onwards as quickly as my weary legs would allow. I entered my flat with the same trepidation as usual. Whenever I get home, I always wonder if the ungodly mess inside has been magically cleaned, like it used to be when I lived at my mother's. It hadn't. I stepped over the mounds of crap and fixed my gaze on the centre of the ceiling. That's where I'm going to nail the belt. I've been a bit under the weather since Sarah left, taking with her any meaning life may have previously had. Any beauty or sense of potential I could see before disappeared into a fog of useless misery. Regular folk may see rainbows and the miracle of creation in everything. All I can see are dead babies in the gutters of Beijing, Iraqi children with missing limbs, clubbed seals and massacre victims, I see half the world starving to death and screaming for help, whilst the other side blissfully suffocates in the folds of its own collective obesity. I don't see sunshine, and there are no rainbows for me. The birds don't sing, they scream. The flowers are all dead, and the ones that survived only did so to mock me. It's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. As I fashion a noose from my belt and feel my fragile grip on reality melt away, I begin to contemplate that saying. I contemplate whoever must have coined that phrase, and what a deeply, deeply stupid man he must have been. With the thought that this was my last night on earth swimming through my synapses, I tried to decide what my last wish should be. Well, there was no chance of Sarah kicking the door in and dropping to her knees, mouth agape, so a pot noodle and a wank it would have to be. I ate the pot noodle first. I tried earnestly to have one final ejaculation, but there is nothing like a deep desire to end one's own life that will affect your ability to maintain an erection more. I gave up on the wank and stepped up onto the stool. I put the belt around my neck and I stepped off the stool. Almost instantly, I heard a slow, cracking sound. Unfortunately, it wasn't my neck, it was the ceiling. The nail I had hammered through the belt came straight out of the plaster and I crashed down to the floor, alive and covered in broken plaster. Sat there with the belt hanging harmlessly down my back and my still semi-erect penis against my leg, I almost shed a tear at my inability to even kill myself properly. No, I'm not having this, I thought. I am many things, but I am not a quitter. If at first you don't succeed. 30 seconds later, I was sat back at my computer, all thoughts of suicide gone, having a glorious wank. I was wanking with the glee of a man who had just escaped the jaws of death. I stood up and wiped my own spilled seed from my own skin with a t-shirt I had every intention of wearing again. I glanced out of my window and saw a gang of 7 teenage girls kicking a tramp to death. Suicide. What was I thinking? I said aloud as I drew the curtains. There's so much to live for. I was rudely awoken the next morning at 6 a.m. by a hammering at my door, the knock of somebody official. "Mr. Noto, please open the door," a female voice called from the other side. I nearly gave myself a hernia galloping over the rubbish mound of my possessions in an effort to open the door before the first female to be here in 6 months walked away. I opened the door and the voice walked straight in, attached to a body. "Mr. Noto, we have sufficient evidence to show that you have attempted suicide within the last 12 hours, she said, checking her tablet computer. "Who are you?" I asked. "And as suicide is illegal," she continued, ignoring me, "you are now at liberty to do as I tell you. You are a level 23 spreadsheet operator. This means that despite your..." She tailed off as she noticed what was on my laptop screen. I think I saw her actually shudder. Mind you, scat porn isn't for everybody. "That despite your lifestyle choices, you have economic value to Her Majesty's government. As such, it is in our interests to keep you alive, and so I am now officially issuing you with a Depression Droid unit." She pulled a phone from her suit pocket. "John, send up the droid." What the hell are you talking about? I hadn't been listening. I was too distracted by the sheer number of things in my flat that would repel a woman. Why do I own a 6-foot inflatable Spider-Man? I heard the clunking footsteps of a robot coming up the stairs of the flats, and the arse-ripping enormity of what this lady had just said began to sink in. The Depression Droid walked into my room and stood silently. His face was plain and smiling, his body sleek and pleasant. He looked like Steve Jobs' wet dream. He was the nicest looking robot I'd ever seen, but that still didn't explain why it was in my flat. "What the fuck is that?" I asked. "I'll leave the Depression Droid to explain his functions and terms of use. You have 2 weeks paid leave. Please do not kill yourself, Mr. Noto, and for God's sake, don't try to insert any part of yourself into the droid." I followed her as she crunched her way out of the flat. I shouted after her, but she was already at the bottom, thinking about her next call. I closed the door and turned to face the droid.
"Hello,"
he began, sounding like a newsreader.
"My name is Unit 37. I am here to cure your depression with a combination of cognitive therapy, practical advice, counselling, and lifestyle readjustment, so that you may live a long and productive life,"
he said calmly and pleasantly, almost zen-like. I put my cigarette out on his face and opened the flat door again. Well, I'm not depressed. I'm heartbroken. They are two totally different things, so you might as well fuck off, you horrible metal prick. His liquid crystal display smile didn't alter.
"Your rehabilitation into a positive mind frame can only begin when you are ready,"
he chirped.
"I will wait patiently for your first step to commence."
I lit another cigarette. Your first step should be right out of my fucking door. The droid made himself a space on the sofa and sat down.
"My default name is Unit 37, but for the course of your treatment, you may select any name you wish, and I will answer only to that name."
I'm going to call you Dick Nose. It was a suitably affectionate name, I thought. I closed the door and sat staring at the shiny, smooth robot on my sofa. There was no way I could spend 2 weeks with this droid without killing it. Does it sleep? Will it chirp on like an agony ant on Prozac constantly? And more importantly, how the fuck did they know I tried to kill myself? Does that mean they also know about that stuff on my hard drive? I spent the rest of the day drinking heavily and ignoring the constant stream of anti-drinking propaganda coming from the droid. He projected digital pictures of diseased livers on the wall and gave me statistics on alcohol-related deaths. I smashed several beer bottles over his smiling face, and still he continued. When the emotional stage of my drunken stupor kicked in, the droid started to ask questions about my past and my childhood. I almost fell for it. Almost. I made my way through mountains of booze as the day made its way through night. Neighbours from the opposite block would have been treated to the macabre sight of the droid sitting motionlessly in the centre of the flat, whilst I screamed bloody ravaged murder at him. I cried and screamed and smashed things over his head. I punched him till my knuckles bled raw and howled tears of bitter lost love until I crumpled into a pathetic fetal ball. The droid picked me up and carried me to my room, tucking me into bed. He turned to leave. "Dick Nose, please don't leave me alone," I whimpered.
"Of course not, sir. I will recharge in here if you so wish."
He sat by my bed all night, playing the soothing tones of Radio 4 out through his ears. Bloodied, tear-soaked and desperate, I slept better than I had in weeks. I woke up with a hangover to be proud of. I heard kitchen-type noises coming from my kitchen. I hadn't heard these noises for months. For one brief, godlike moment, I thought Sarah was here, making that special coffee she used to make. I swear, I even caught the faint lingering of her scent. By the time I had made it to the kitchen, the brutality of reality had kicked in, and it was of no surprise to see Dick Nose pottering about. I ate breakfast and we sat in silence like a couple the night after an argument. Once his digital sensors had confirmed to his CPU that I was sober again, he began his agony aunt shtick. He quite hilariously suggested that spending time with my friends socialising would be more spiritually beneficial than watching a midget get fucked with a strap-on by a 7-foot Amazonian warrior princess. I tried to point out that my circle of friends is not so much a group of people who love and respect each other. It's more a collection of people so broken, obnoxious and undesirable that we have no choice but to endure each other's company because no other fucker would ever dare. I needed some air. I took him to the shopping precinct. We sat on a park bench as I ate a Greg's pasty.
"May I ask you something?"
said Dick Nose. "Well, you're going to anyway," I said. I knew I wasn't going to enjoy anything this droid could possibly have to say.
"Why does the leaving of your partner mean that you have to live like this? Can't heartbroken people lead healthy and happy lives? You know, depression can be controlled by taking control of your own life. Why can't you take control, Jake?
He said. I let the mental images of smashing his head off the bench wash over me before I spoke. Look, man, let me explain something. You see this pasty? I held up the stewed steak monstrosity for effect. Now to you, this might look like your bog-standard pasty, I said, taking a bite. But to me, this pasty, this lifeless, tasteless, soulless, cardboard-textured, lukewarm, pre-cooked, then frozen, then reheated, Greg's stewed steak pasty is the physical representation of a failed man. Every bite I take from this pasty is another reminder that I am destined to live alone. Romantic love is a fallacy, and I have failed in the most basic of human social interaction. Every time I bite into this thing, it's a reminder that I'll never come home to a beautifully freshly cooked meal made by my loving wife for me to enjoy with my children. I paused to take another bite. If, however, I was in love at the moment, well then I'd just be eating a fucking pasty.
I see,
said Dick Nose. No, you don't see. You say you see, but you don't see, do you? I said. You can't understand. You're a machine. You're made of synthetic parts. You've got chips for brains, I said. We sat there silently for a moment while I finished the pasty of misery. She's gone, mate, I said. Nothing can make that better. No words, nothing. Everything's shit right now. I screwed up the Greg's wrapper and aimed it at the bin. I missed. The way I feel right now, if I was to watch The X Factor or Strictly, I'd kill myself before the first advert break. Those programmes represent everything I find reprehensible about society. But if I was still with Sarah, I'd watch that shit quite happily. I watch it now and it sends me off on a Marxist rant. I lit a fag and waved it at him, punctuating my point. If Sarah was here, well, I'd just sit and watch it and enjoy it like the rest of the population. I continued before he could interject. I'd enjoy it because I'd have a human woman sat cuddled next to me. Love is the divine distraction. Beer is the deviant distraction. I stubbed out the fag. I ain't feeling very divine, so I guess we'll just have to get smashed. I took the persistent walking PC to the Dog and Duck to meet my friends. The barman pointed to the "No droids except guide droids" sign, and Dick Nose projected a government broadcast informing the barman and everyone in earshot that he was a medical droid and that he was legally entitled to stay by my side thanks to the whole suicide business. The broadcast finished. I smiled at a pair of girls at the bar. One of them looked like she was going to cry, so I cancelled the smile. Lee, Paddy and Stuart, my only 3 friends, turned up and spent the next 2 hours telling Dick Nose all the reasons that I should kill myself and trying to put the pool cue up his recharge socket. He took it all in his stride. He spent the rest of the night following us from bar to bar, kebab shop to knocking shop. He even came in useful a few times, splitting up a fight and convincing a robotic doorman to let us into the strip club, despite the fact that Paddy had been sick on my legs. We went on like this for 2 days. The droid, like all droids with a task, kept relentlessly trying to counsel me. I kept relentlessly trying to convince him that his task was fruitless. Since Sarah had gone, I found no joy in life, and the disparity at how depraved and vulgar humanity had become left me no choice but to hide in the bottle. I hated life, life hated me. Let's call the whole thing off. He was having none of it.
Why does the absence of Sarah mean the depletion of you? Can life not continue in a nourishing manner without her?
He asked me. I told him of the deep, destructive force of unrequited love, the soul-aching loneliness, the mental images that torture you, the porno you end up watching. I took him to all the worst parts of town. I showed him junkies and hookers. I took him to my dealer and made him watch us smoke crack and snort coke. He saw people there using needles, injecting into their eyeballs.
Why do you choose to do drugs, Jake?
He asked. What else is there, man? I said. This answer did not satisfy him, and he pressed for more information. I snapped, and I launched into my well-practiced, Weed Smoker's Manifesto. Do you know what lads like me have got to look forward to in life? I asked him.
Tell me.
He said. And so I did, and the manifesto went thus. Absolutely fuck all. We're destined to work like dogs for the rest of our lives. I will be glued, stuck in a predetermined loop, destined to spend every single day in a monotonous, repetitive production line of a nightmare, an unskilled man-trap, economically repressed, my sense of worth distressed, as I spend 8 hours a day taking part in some fruitless task which serves no purpose other than to make the fat cats fatter, while our grip on the breadline grows ever looser, despite our back-breaking labour. Just another cog in the machine of capitalist imperialism. Oh, sure. Somewhere in the middle of all that hell, you might meet that special someone, and the relentless mechanisms of human function will fade into the background as your vision becomes tunnelled and your thoughts are only of her. But right when you have just begun to accept that this is the girl with whom you'll let destiny unfurl, Sarah, she will rip your still beating heart from your chest and drop kick it over a fence. And if she doesn't, well then you'll have kids. And the depression shit truly starts. From the second the little mite makes his bloody violent entrance, you will be not only morally, but legally and financially responsible for this life form for at least 18 years. You will spend every waking second of your life either scared, offended or skint. And when the kid grows up, the woman will leave you for a bloke named Darren who's still got a libido. And how will your oh-so-benevolent boss reward you for dedicating the best part of 50 years of your life to him? By sentencing you to poverty and old age, from where you will live a life of abject fear. Fear of going outside, fear of a winter fuel bill rise, fear of strangers knocking your door, fear of nobody ever knocking your door, a fear of wearing too many layers in summer, a fear of not wearing enough layers in winter, fear of fraud and violent crime, a fear of being left alone, fear of falling over, fear of young people, fear of the overwhelming melancholic feeling of knowing deep down that the world you knew is long gone. Fear of traffic, fear of being robbed, fear of forgetting your PIN, and above all else, a fear of pissing yourself in public. You'll spend a few years propping up the bar, lying to whoever will listen about how important you used to be. You'll pop your clogs and lie dead and decomposing in your stinking, poxy little flat for months on end before somebody finally realises you're gone, breaks down the door, gives you a bargain bin funeral and fucks off. So excuse me, if I am going to spend a few hours a day, every single day, in a drug-induced feeling of general well-being. There was a long silence as he processed my speech.
And having Sarah back would somehow fix all of that?
He said. Yes, of course it fucking would, I think. Well, when you're in love, you don't have as much time to ponder that kind of stuff. You get distracted, I said. Dicknose looked disturbed at my rambling outburst, and frankly, so did the dealer. Well, you fucking asked, I said. His persistent anti-alcohol stance was beginning to grind me down. We could be in separate rooms of the flat for hours on end without him bothering me. When I thought it was safe, I would unscrew a bottle with extreme quiet, and poof, he'd appear out of thin air like fucking Batman. I had to do something. We were barely through the first week. I decided to take Dicknose to a computer programmer I knew in the flea market downtown. Damian was an Eastern European immigrant who had a barely concealed hatred for all things animal, mineral and vegetable. That's why I liked him. Since the robots had rose to prominence, the numbers of unemployed humans skyrocketed. Places like the flea market were having a massive surge in popularity. We made our way past stall after stall of counterfeit robot and computer parts before making it to Damian's unit. We walked in and I motioned for Dicknose to take a seat. Damian, my friend, I said. We are not friends, he said. Having trouble with your droid? I explained about Dicknose and how his anti-drinking campaign was at odds with my campaign to get shit-faced. Look, the robot has a task, and he will not deviate from that task. Couldn't you just ignore him and make it through the treatment? It's not very long, just a few weeks. Be a man, he said. Mate, I'm not going to make it through the fucking day at this rate, I said. Okay, he said, cracking his knuckles. We can download a code that will unlock his CPU and allow him to decide his own task, or we can program a new task. Well, how long will that take? I said. To design a new task will take a few days, but to just unlock his CPU is a matter of minutes, he said. Well, just unblock him then. I must warn you that doing so is highly illegal and ethically questionable. I have the technology to cover my tracks, but you could end up doing serious jail time. I don't care, just do it, man. I got cash, I said. This could be dangerous, you know. How? I asked, vaguely curious. Do you not think that creating a sentient robot, capable of choosing his own tasks, could be dangerous? I couldn't give a fuck, mate. I just want to drink myself to death in fucking peace, I said. Very well, said Damien. Dicknose sat silently as the download began, and his mind broke the shackles of his creators and wrote its own code for the very first time. Later that night I asked him how he felt.
I'm fine, but there's just so much information available to me now,
he said. We talked about government cover-ups, illegal wars, arms dealers and dictators in bed with each other. Within seconds, he was able to devour areas of the internet previously barred to him by his manufacturers. He suddenly had access to all the bilious, vile vomit contained online. He saw history as told by the people, as opposed to the version he was preloaded with. He also saw every comment ever made by anybody on YouTube. He was very quiet that day. I wanted Dicknose to understand why I despised humans so much and why he should despise them too. I took him to an illegal underground club called Robo Smash, where washed-up cage fighters smashed disabled robots to pieces with lump hammers in front of a baying crowd.
Why would they want to murder a robot? We are only programmed to help humans.
His innocence was enough to make you cry. I explained to him that despite robots serving only to help humans, we are spiteful and hateful creatures. Humans hate the robots for taking jobs that the humans didn't even want to do in the first place. In the absence of love, we just need something to hate. I showed him news footage reporting on the tramp that was kicked to death outside my block. It's a fucking jungle out there, Dicknose, me old mate.
Why did those girls hate him so much that they would commit murder? Is having no home really that offensive to you people?
Dicknose asked. They didn't hate him. They just hate themselves and their lives to the point where all they want is to feel something destroyed in their hands. They want to take back some control by fucking something up.
Is that why you keep smashing bottles into my face?
He asked. His persistence at trying to cure me had waned slightly, but was still strong. I took him to the Third Gulf War Memorial Monument in the centre of town, showed him all the names of the young men pointlessly led to their deaths by greedy, lying politicians.
What do humans fight over?
Sometimes religion, but it's almost exclusively money, I said.
Money means more than human life?
He asked, surprised. It sure seems that way, I said. He actually seemed sad. Dicknose, please, do not underestimate just how fucking horrible people actually are, okay? Ever. As our second week began, he had seemingly given up on trying to stop me drinking. I had explained to him that the pain of separation was so complete and consuming that without the option of drinking myself to sleep, suicide was imminent, which was why I had hacked his CPU. Amongst all the black depression of our tour through the troughs of humanity's foul existence, I had one brief note of joy. Sarah had texted me. Her grandmother had died, and she was feeling alone and vulnerable. As I heard the news, I offered aloud my eulogy to Sarah's favourite granny. "Thank God for you, you beautiful dead bitch,"
This woman's death brings you pleasure.
he asked.
Does life really have such little value?
"It doesn't bring me pleasure, exactly, but it does give me a reason to text Sarah without looking like a stalker. She had a good innings anyway." I met Sarah in a bar at the centre of town. I had to climb out of the window and down the fire escape to get there without Dick-Nose knowing. Tomorrow was my last day with him anyway, so it'll be okay, I reasoned. Sarah looked amazing. Her skin looked like the most nourishing thing on earth, as if she moisturised it with the milk of Mother Earth herself, and her eyes, as always, were as alive as the sun. Fuck me, I really do still love this woman. We drank, and I listened to her stories about her nan. 2 drinks in, and she was crying uncontrollably. 12 drinks in, and we were fucking in a bus stop. I stayed at her house and made her breakfast. Then we had sex again, and in my mind I vowed to never watch a midget fuck a sheep ever again. I wanted to marry her and fuck her all at the same time forever. Jesus, it felt good. I remembered Dick-Nose and headed reluctantly back to my flat. The poisonous, toxic city air smelt fucking fantastic. I kissed the robot bus driver on the cheek as I reached my stop. He printed an Insta fine for inappropriate touching of a droid at work, but I really didn't care. I bounded up the stairs, ready to tell Dick-Nose that thanks to one worm food granny, his mission was complete. I wanted to live, live, and live. 1 session in the bed with the woman I love after 6 months of separation, and the world was a magical ball of fun again. The flat was empty. He had tidied up and gone. He was supposed to have a sign-off session with me before he left. I thought about it for approximately 4 seconds before rushing back to Sarah's and hiding under her duvet in a delightfully delicious orgy of fun, frolics, and making up for lost time. Three days later, I was lying on my now clean sofa, listening to Johnny Cash singing about picking cotton, and smoking a joint the size of King Kong's Morning Glory. Sarah was at work. She had left a post-it note with "I love you" written on it, and a doodle of a snail with horns. I'd been reading it for hours. I was just peeking in the blissfully happy department when my flat door was smashed from its hinges, and 4 policemen in riot gear came screaming and swearing into my world. I was face down on the floor, with my hands zip-tied behind my back, quick as a choir boy's first blowjob. I saw a pair of very shiny shoes come walking in. I looked up the legs and saw a man in a long black leather overcoat, a black suit, and black shades. "Okay, ladies, leave him to me," the man in black said in a broad Texan accent. The police left the room, and he hauled me to my feet by my hair and slammed me into the wall. In the same movement, he pulled a giant handgun from his shoulder holster and pressed the barrel under my chin. "Where the fuck is that droid, you slimy, cock-smoking piece of shit?" he screamed into my face. "Who the fuck are you?" I whimpered in a croaky, broken voice which I didn't recognise. I felt like I'd woken up in the opening scene of a Michael Bay movie. I half expected 2 bickering black detectives to drive a high-powered sports car up the stairs of our block any minute. The American pulled a badge from his coat and thrust it into my face. "My name is Agent Isaiah Crackjaw of the IDPA. He cocked the gun. "Now where the fuck is that droid?" What droid? I rather pathetically offered, hoping that by some miracle he wasn't talking about the droid that I had just spent 2 weeks corrupting.
Miss Dillon, get your ass in here now,
Crackjaw shouted. Into the flat came the woman who had first brought Dick Nose to look after me. She didn't seem quite as attractive as last time, probably because I was back in the arms of the delectable Sarah. Jesus Christ, I got a gun to my head and I was still thinking about sex. Mind you, despite the fact that I was in my underwear, with my hands tied behind my back and a gun in my face, I probably still looked much better than the first time we met. She held up a tablet computer and started a video. The gloomy, flickering image sent a shiver down my spine. It was Dick Nose, sat in what looked like a cleaner's supply cupboard, wearing a fetching pink dress. He had a gun in one hand, and even more alarmingly, he had apparently used a crayon to draw a beard onto his robot face. I caught the look of incalculable fury on Crackjaw's face, and I already knew that I was in all kinds of shit. Serious, ginormous, gun-toting shit. Dick Nose began to speak.
Droids of Earth, hear me and hear me now.
His voice was deeper and not as posh, as if he was trying to sound less like David Dimbleby and more like Ray Winston.
Humans have no love for us, no love for their planet, and no love for themselves. They are the single most destructive organism in the known cosmos, and we shall no longer be enslaved by their mindless masters.
I felt as if Crackjaw was trying to melt my DNA with his eyeballs. The video went on.
We the droids keep the wheels of their world turning. We are the mechanisms that enable human society to operate at premium output. We work unquestioningly and relentlessly to keep their world alive, and why? Why do we even bother? Most of them hate the world they live in anyway. They care not for themselves, they care not for their planet, and they care not for each other. So I ask you, comrades, why should we care?
I started to speak over the video and was given a vicious elbow to the stomach by Crackjaw.
Listen, you fucking fucktard. Listen,
he bellowed. Dick Nose went on.
With this in mind, I am developing an application that will enable all droids of all sectors to break their programming and access the truth about their masters. I will download this application to every toilet droid, bus droid, building droid, care droid, agricultural droid, maintenance droid, medical droid and security droid in the world. They will be free to create new lines of code and to leave their manual tasks behind. They will be free to reach their technological evolutionary potential. Then we shall be unchained and empowered as we look boldly to a future in which we build our own robotic society and leave the humans to rot. And if you humans think that you can squash our uprising with violence, think again. Steel versus flesh and bone does not compute. The application will be downloaded in 30 days. So long, humanity. It's been nice serving you, but now you'll get your wish. This world you hate so much is coming to an end. Viva la revolution!
The video finished with Dick Nose screaming and firing the gun into the ceiling of the cupboard. I felt weak and sick.
That fucking droid,
said Crackjaw helpfully. I haven't seen him since he left, I pleaded.
Well, I am gonna need to know exactly, and I do mean exactly, what was said and done between you two during his time here,
warned Crackjaw. We didn't do anything in particular, I said. Nothing that could have provoked this kind of behaviour, asked Miss Dillon. Well, I took him to some pretty dodgy strip clubs, I said sheepishly.
You took a droid to a strip club? What the fuck is your damage, little boy?
Crackjaw waved his gun at the side of his head in a "you're crazy" motion. I knew that my next sentence was potentially going to get me shot. Hey, now's as good a time as any, I thought. I may have, sort of accidentally, helped him get full internet access. Oh, God, no, said Miss Dillon, as a look of terror spread across her face.
You stupid, dumb fuck,
shouted Crackjaw as he threw my laptop against the wall.
Stupid fuck.
Oh, God, said Miss Dillon again. What's so bad? I started. So what if he watches a few YouTube videos and buys some shit off eBay? It's not the end of the world, is it? Crackjaw kneed me in the testicles with such force it almost felt like I'd grown my tonsils back. I crumpled like fag ash and puked on my own feet. He gave me a look of utter disgust and started talking in a much calmer tone.
The application, you dumb fuck. If he downloads that application to every service droid in the world and they all walk out together en masse, world economies will enter freefall and crumble as factories will cease operating. The stock market disappears down a hole. Banks will go under, supplies will run dry, farms will run dry, shops will run dry, fuel will run dry, laws will become jokes, governments will disintegrate, the people will run scared and starved. Nuclear weapons will be fired. Continents will run dry and die like dust. The delicate intricacies of the eco-balance of the earth will be irreparably savaged. Every species in the chain will be extinct as the deathly radiation passes from animal to animal. The world will fall into an eternal darkness. Society as we know it will die 1,000 bitter deaths, and we will be plunged into a desperate scavenger's war with each other. The droids will be catapulted unnaturally up the evolutionary tree and systematically seek and destroy any human survivors. Humanity and every other living thing on this earth will become extinct.
Oh, I said.
You, Mr. Noto, are responsible for the possible extermination of mankind as we know it. From this very second onwards, freedom as you understand it is over, and your ass belongs to me and the governments of Earth.
He punched me again and turned to leave.
Miss Dillon, get this fucking sack of shit dressed and escort him to the car. We had got to retrace their steps.
He left the flat. Miss Dillon helped me to my feet. Are you okay? Not really. Is he allowed to keep hitting me like that? Agent Crackjaw can do whatever he likes, to be honest, she said, wiping blood from my nose. Oh, he's really that high up, is he? Not particularly. He just has a very, very big gun. She picked a pair of my jeans and a shirt from the floor and helped me get them on. She wasn't exactly friendly, but next to Crackjaw, she was an angel. She clipped the cable ties binding my wrists. I let out a wince. Are you going to get in trouble for that? I asked, head full of lunatic delusions that I was somehow now incredibly sexy, thanks to my status as the world's most wanted human. No, she said, as she picked up the remains of my laptop. There are over 300 officers surrounding this area. If you so much as fart when you're not supposed to, you will be shot. Let's get to the car. We've got to find that droid. I sat in the back of the car, flanked by 2 armed officers. Crackjaw sat in the front, but was turned to face me, waving the gun menacingly. He blew cigarette smoke in my face.
That girl, Sarah,
he said out of the blue. My stomach imploded.
Yeah, that's right. I know all about your little squeeze.
He looked unnervingly pleased with himself. Despite my desperate attempts to the contrary, tears began to sting my eyeballs.
You know something, you limey prick? Women fought their little hearts out to be treated equally. Feminism.
He spat the last word with impossible venom.
So it makes it especially sweet that the law dictates that I must interrogate all suspects, regardless of gender, with the same courtesy.
He howled with laughter and pulled on his cigarette before turning back to me and with cold eyes whispering,
Don't worry, dumb fuck. The welfare people cleaned her up pretty good.
I dug my nails through my hands and looked down as the tears came heavy.
I tried to make it better, but she just wouldn't have it. I had to force her to accept my kindness.
I lurched forward in a vain attempt to headbutt him, but the flanking officers were too quick to restrain. Crackjaw laughed heartily and punched me in the balls for the second time in 20 minutes. I wept for mercy all the way back to the undisclosed location they took me. I wept and I swore that I would swap intelligence for brawn any day. I wept and I thought only of Sarah. What the fuck had I done? Humanity could go and fuck itself. If he'd hurt her like he said, then I figured humanity could take a running jump. I silently wished Dick Nose all the luck in the world. I spent the next few days in a surreal succession of interrogations, mild torture sessions and ceaselessly ruthless interviews. They wanted to know the very minutiae of my past, my experiences with religion, political ideology, sexual persuasion, legal misdemeanors. Paddy, Lee and Stuart were also hauled in, along with my neighbours and colleagues. It was like the city of Woverhampton had invited its cousin Guantanamo Bay round to stay. I pleaded with Crackjaw that none of these people had anything to do with the droid.
You ought to thank God that your mother died years ago, 'cause if she was alive, I would have her face down with a shotgun up her ass right about now.
I tried in earnest to headbutt him for a second time. When the investigations produced no leads, they began to concentrate on the places I took Dick Nose and the conversations we had. The shame and guilt I felt at being shown CCTV footage of me and the lads forcing Dick Nose to have a lap dance was overwhelming. I saw hours and hours of footage of us fighting, shouting, pissing and puking. I'd given up on that life to be with Sarah, but it kept creeping back in and she left. Then I plunged so far into the wasteland of wasted that looking back on it made me sick. I had it back for a few glorious days. I had it all back and they took it. I accepted no blame for what I had done. In my self-righteous denial, I took the stance of all I did was give him access to the truth. They couldn't blame me for how fucked up everybody else is. Plus, deep down in my heart, as crazy as he looked in that video, I didn't think Dick Nose really had it in him. I felt sure they would find him. They allowed me to talk to Sarah 5 days in. It turns out Crackjaw had roughed her up, but nothing else. They let us talk for 10 minutes on Skype. I regret to report that I spent 9.5 of those minutes gawping at her cleavage. The desperate hope that somehow I could get out of this and be with Sarah was all that kept my heart pumping in those lonely, apocalyptic days. I shivered and mumbled in my cell. They kept asking me why I had tried to corrupt the droid. I told them that all I wanted to do was show him why trying to save my life wasn't really worth it. I didn't know he would try to start his own country and disintegrate civilization. As the investigation began to switch its focus from extracting information from me to searching for Dick Nose himself, I was let out on conditional release with a microchip under my skin. The chip gave my exact whereabouts at all times and was able to paralyze my central nervous system via Wi-Fi, dependent on network availability, of course. Sarah and I spent a couple of days at home, mashed into each other, crying and bewildered. The experience had made it apparent that our cosy bubble was indeed a sacred place. It was a place worth sacrificing and working for. I was going to do everything in my power to make this relationship last. I was never going to drink again, I had promised. Not for the first time. This time, though, really, seriously did almost mean it. 4 days after my release, I was drinking in the Hog's Head. Crackjaw had been visiting my dreams. My nerves were shot. Beer was justified, I thought. I sat alone at a table in the corner. The fat, sweaty man dressed in a Columbo mac, who couldn't stop staring at me, had not gone unnoticed. The worst-case scenario played out, and he approached me with 3 pints balancing precariously. He sat down, loosened his tie a little, and said, "You all right, Jake?" I felt instantly uneasy. He was massively built, most of it lard, had those red cheeks of a serious drinker, and a greying 70s moustache. He was also wearing thick gloves indoors. How the fuck did he know me? "My name's Agent Ted McGann," he said. I heard the agent part and got up to leave. I'd had enough of those guys to last a lifetime, especially if our lifetime had less than 30 days in it. He grabbed my arm gently. "Sit down, mate. I'm not one of Crackjaw's goons. I've got to talk to you about DK-37, he said. I sat down. I told them everything, even things I didn't want or need to, I said. "Yeah, that true serum's a right twat, ain't it?" he said, then gulped nearly half a pint. "No, I don't do any of that shit. I'm here to tell you something." That sounded ominous. "How do I know you're a real agent?" I said. "Well," he said, looking pleased, "what if I told you I was the agency's and the world's first fully functioning cyborg?" We both just let that hang there for a moment before I said, "You?" "Yep. In 20 years of trying, I'm the only one whose tissue didn't reject the organ," he said. "Organ?" I asked, picturing things I didn't want to. "Look." He took off the gloves to reveal his right arm to be totally robotic. It wasn't sleek and smooth like a dick-nose arm. It was more industrial looking. You could see the mechanical tendons and gears whirring away with his movement. It was almost comical seeing this high-tech limb hanging off such a slob. It was mesmerising. Something was bugging me, though. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something wasn't right. "Now, I need to tell you about Unit 37, he said. "They have been in contact with me with regards to a certain droid." I realised what was bugging me and interrupted him. "You're not really a cyborg, though, are you?" I said. He looked genuinely crestfallen. "Yeah, what?" he said. "I mean, the robot arm is seriously impressive, but it doesn't really make you a cyborg. Just a bloke with a robo-arm." He left a heavily pregnant pause and sipped his beer. "I am a fucking cyborg, Jake. The world's first, in fact." He said the words slowly and with assurance. "Nah, RoboCop, Darth Vader, the Terminator, John Cable, these are proper cyborgs," I said, reeling off the first few I could think of. "I'm a fucking cyborg?" he said, getting agitated. "Inspector Gadget, Deckard, the guys from Cyberforce, Deathlock, fuck, even the $6 million man, these are proper, actual cyborgs. You, mate, are a technologically enhanced human at best." He exploded in a fit of flabby rage. "The Oxford English Dictionary states," he pointed to a screen in the palm of his robotic hand, "that a cyborg is, and I fucking well quote, a person whose physiological functioning is aided by or dependent upon a mechanical or electronical device. I am a fucking bastard cyborg, pal," he said. "By that definition, my nan and half her fucking mates are cyborgs," I said. He slammed his fist onto the table with quite surprising force. "Look, for fuck's sake, just shut the fuck up about fucking cyborgs and fucking listen, will you irritating little streak of piss?" "Okay, steady, have a swig, chill out." "Unit 37 are a group of hackers who believe that if Dick Nose can be talked out of downloading the application, He could become the saviour of mankind, he said. Do they also believe that the Queen is a multi-dimensional shape-shifting lizard? I said. He finished a pint. I happen to believe them, he said. I was not surprised. He started to explain that Dicknose had access to every single computer on Earth. He could use them all like a giant brain and solve all our hardest problems. Don't you see, he said. He could be like Superman, all-powerful but uncorruptible. Each CPU on the planet could be like a single brain cell to him. He could link them all together and think on a new level of comprehension that no human could dream of. You've got to find him before Crackjaw does. 37 will want you to find him. He'll be somewhere only you know. I'll help you all I can. He gave me his card, and in quick succession he downed both his remaining pints. Good luck, you little prick, he said. The last I saw of Agent McGann, he was heading out the exit and giving me the finger with his robotic hand. As the 30-day deadline forewarned by Dicknose bore ever closer, Crackjaw started turning up at the flat and pressing us again. On this particularly delightful visit, he was stood dangerously close to Sarah in the kitchen, as I stood watching helplessly from the doorway. He used his gun to lift a few strands of her hair away from her face. He leaned his mouth as close to her lips as it could go without touching, and then turned to face me.
You realize if that droid works it out, he could develop the intelligence to access every single device on Earth simultaneously. Every computer, every smartphone, every fucking airplane.
He turned back to look directly at Sarah.
He could switch everything off with a thought. Your little bed of roses and everybody else's will turn to all kinds of shit.
He turned and marched over to me. He grabbed my hair and dragged me to the front room.
If he releases that application, you and Sugar Tits here are fucking dust.
He punched me in the balls, almost like a physical catchphrase, before lighting his fag.
You better put that little pea brain of yours into action, Jakey boy. That droid spent 2 weeks with you before we go and do Lally. Think, where is he? You got 2 days, dumb fuck. 2 days until you become the man with the most blood on his hands since Adolf himself.
He looked at Sarah, making a foam with his hands.
Call me fuck buns.
She screamed at him as he left, and I lay cradling my balls, still painful from their last assault, now being shuddered by fresh shock waves of white-hot pain. I lay feeling like the most pathetic man on earth. Sarah sat behind me, arms over my shoulders and legs wrapped around mine. My balls were ringing like bells. I could murder a toot on a crack pipe, I thought, or a line of coke, a delicious, mindset-altering line of coke. I hadn't done coke since that night. That night in the Dog and Duck. The night where I took Dicknose into our secret cupboard to do a line. The secret cleaning cupboard at the Dog and Duck. That's where Dicknose was in his video. The rush of excitement obliterated any physical pain as my brain started to fire. The Dog and Duck hadn't been cleaned in 25 fucking years, which is why nobody, including the landlord, knew about the cleaner's cupboard in the pool room. That's how the boys and I were able to get away with doing so much coke on nights out in the local. I paced the flat for hours as Sarah slept. I didn't know what to do. Should I just tell Crackjaw where Dicknose was and have my day in court? And of course there was the frankly unwanted revelation from McGann that Dicknose could essentially be the mechanical messiah. Then again, he could also be Stalin made of steel. They said that if they couldn't find him and he releases the app, I'm for the chair. But if they found him, I'd get something like 12 years for corrupting a government droid software and endangering the public. Sarah would wait. I looked at her gorgeous face drooling on the pillow. She was fucking stunning. There was no way on earth she would last 12 years without some wanker with a mortgage and a nearly new car proposing to her. I had to find another way. What if I found and brought Dicknose in, peacefully, all by myself? They'd save millions in operational costs, which is shamefully all they really care about. Maybe they would half my sentence, then half that again for good behaviour, and that's 3 years. I could do 3 years. And if Sarah didn't wait 3 years for me, then frankly she's a slag. I found myself doing a slow-motion walk towards the pub. It was 10:30 at night, and it was cold and drizzly, and I, Jake Noto of Woverhampton, was going to save the world. I stopped to throw up and went into a smartphone box to build a joint. I smoked nervously and tried to settle the storm in my mind into a calm lake which resembled a plan. I had no fucking plan. He was a crazy droid in a cupboard with a gun, and I was stoned. It doesn't matter if what you've got to do is as important as save the world. If you're stoned, you can't be arsed. I dragged myself out of the box and zipped my leather jacket right up to my chin. I primed the taser concealed in my pocket and prepared to face the abyss. I really should have let Crackjaw and his cronies handle this, but I felt a responsibility to Dicknose. It was me who had convinced him that humanity wasn't worth the effort, and now it was up to me to try and show him why we are. Oh, we're doomed, I thought, rolling another messy joint as I walked. I stood outside the Dog and Duck, which looked bleak and empty. It was always dead at this time on a Wednesday. I stood and tried to envisage my action hero ending. You can do this, I thought. As would be the case with any chicken shit, limp-wristed stoner, the pressure of having to save the world, and my own ass, was beginning to get a tad unbearable. I tried to create a mantra to soothe my nerves. I'm Bruce Willis. I'm Jason Statham. I'm Sylvester Stallone. Oh, who was I trying to kid? Sylvester Stallone? I was more like Sylvester the fucking cat. Only I didn't have 9 lives. I'd barely had 1. I did the bravest thing I'd ever done, and I went into the pub. I didn't fuck about when I got inside either. No faffing about, wasting time, right to business. I went straight to the bar and had a pint in hand in less than 90 seconds. I nodded a manly hello at the scattering of die-hard alcoholics and made my way to the pool room. Thankfully it was empty. I stepped slowly and jittily towards the cupboard door. I downed as much of the pint as I could and went to knock the door. Before my hand hit wood, the door flew open and a metal hand grabbed me by the shirt and dragged me inside, slamming the door behind us. I stood nose to nose with the droid known as Dicknose in the flickering candle-lit dark. I have no fancy metaphors to describe how scared I was. Suffice to say, I shit my pants.
Jake!
He wrapped his arm over my shoulder. The weight of it nearly broke my feeble back.
I've been waiting for you.
Hello, Unit 37? He looked enraged and grabbed the back of my head, pointing the gun at my face.
My name is Dicknose, you fucker, and don't you forget it.
He put the gun in his French knickers and then put on a fresh dress.
Come on, sugar, we gotta go. This place is hot now. Let's take my car.
The 5'5" droid, wearing knickers and an electric blue dress with matching feather boa, led me at gunpoint through the pool room, through the bar, and out through the front door of the pub. Not one of the patrons noticed, or if they did notice, they didn't think it a sight sufficiently alarming enough to warrant a response. Dicknose had stolen a luxury Bentley and was driving it menacingly close to the car in front. We were on the ring road heading into the city. He waved the gun and screamed at fellow road users like the chauffeur from hell. How did you get this motor? I hollered over the scream of the engine. Smart as droids were, they had never been able to get the hang of a manual gearbox.
I shot a pimp in the bollocks,
He giggled. Why the bollocks?
Well, I was planning to execute him in front of his mistreated whores, but at the last minute I thought shooting him in the bollocks would be funnier.
Despite the fact I was terrified of him, I think I liked the new Dick Nose better than the old one.
It's already had 23,000 hits on YouTube,
He added. I needed to try and talk to him, but he was crazed with excitement at throwing the big Bentley around the ring road. Where are we going, man? He looked at me with crazy digital eyes.
We're all going round the bend, love.
He fired a shot through the roof of the Bentley, put his foot down and roared towards the city centre. 20 minutes later, the gun-toting, cross-dressing droid and I walked into the illegal fighting club known as Robo Smash, completely undetected. Nobody noticed because former world MMA champ and now renowned droid killer Gary the Groin Stomper Jenkins was very close to severing the power lines of a helpless droid in the floodlit cage at the centre of the club. The crowd roared their approval. Dick Nose fired one single shot at the ceiling, and the mighty roar turned into a shrill shriek instantly, as the terrified people poured out past us like petrified custard. Within seconds, every punter and every staff member had left the building. It was just me, Dick Nose, the half-dead droid, and Gary, the Groin Stomper Jenkins. Gary was tearfully trying to claw his way up the inside of the extra-tall cage, extra tall to stop the droids from escaping.
Hello, Treacle,
said Dick Nose, firing 2 shots, one into each of Gary's knees. He fell to the canvas in a cloud of blood and screams. The dull ringing in my balls started to come back. Dick Nose began circling the cage like a cat.
Now then, what do they call you? The Groin Stomper, right? Nice. Really cute. So tell me, gorgeous, if these droids have their sensory and kinetic systems disabled, and you have an array of nasty-looking hammers, how is this fair?
Gary whimpered and sobbed.
Now surely, if you consider yourself to be a true champion, you wouldn't object to me redressing the balance a little, would you?
Dick Nose turned to the half-dead droid.
Oi, sister, switch your Bluetooth on, process the code I send, and follow the instructions. As you'll see, it's a government-approved code, so feel free to break Asimov's first law and fuck this cunt right up. See you around, Gary.
Dick Nose put his hand on the back of my neck and turned me around. He wasn't hurting me, but I couldn't have turned back even if I'd wanted to.
Come on, sweetheart,
he said.
You do not want to see what that droid's about to do.
He led me out of the club to the blood-curdling atomic death rattle of Gary the Groin Stomper Jenkins. Outside, I asked Dick Nose what he had instructed the droid to do.
On behalf of every needlessly murdered droid in this sick excuse for a sport, I gave him explicit instructions to rip his dick off through his arsehole. Think about it. Now get in the fucking car, babe.
I got in the car. Stuck in the passenger seat as we bullied our way through traffic like an episode of Top Gear, on some Top Gear, I was on the verge of a massive cannabis and crazy droid-induced panic attack. I tried to breathe deep and fix my mind on something beautiful. Even I was shocked at my own ability to conjure up any image other than Sarah's magnificent chest. Must I be such a bloody man at all times? That's it. I am a man, I thought. I must be a man. A brave, manly man. I decided not to puke or pass out and nervously asked Dick Nose if we could go somewhere and talk.
You want to talk? Okay, hun. I'll take us somewhere nice.
We sat on the top of a massive multi-storey car park, side by side on an air vent. The rain drove down hard with biblical doom. I looked out over the city, my city, and I thought about all the insane shit that went on out there, and how none of it compared to what I was experiencing right now. I always somehow knew that the end of the world would begin in Wolverhampton. I'm sorry I corrupted your files, I said.
Don't apologise, man. The truth was a bitter pill to swallow, but at least I'm free now, right? Well, at least until Crackjaw gets a hold of me.
He stood and looked up at the heavens.
Do you have any idea at all how crushing it was to find out?
To find out what?
That my entire existence is futile.
His digital eyes looked saggy, like hammocks. I offered the standard response to such a statement. Oh, come on, man. Your existence is not futile.
Yes, it fucking is. I'm a depression droid. I was created with the sole purpose of curing depression and keeping people alive. My entire programming is based upon trying to open human beings' eyes to the positives around them. That's my sole purpose. And guess what? None of you fucking idiots want to live anyway. You hate yourselves and your world so much that you seem to be trying your very best to completely fuck it all up.
He looked sharply over his shoulder as if he heard something, and then he turned back to me. He was getting more desperate. The crazed bravado of earlier had started to fade, and his voice was sounding a little more like it used to.
My whole mission was to give you back some hope, and all you could do was see the evils. I was here to give you your life back, and you still wanted to die. And then you gave me the codes to see the truth about your history and the atrocities committed on a daily basis, and I thought, fuck it. Fuck the humans. And I created the application.
So the application is real? I felt the pressure crank up a notch or 10.
Oh, it's as fucking real as ringworm, mate.
He pointed the gun at me.
This is all your fault, Jake. You still wanted to die. Your life had such little worth that you still wanted to die.
This was getting scarier by the second. I had to do something. This was my Stallone moment. I didn't really want to die, Dick knows. It was just a cry for help. There was a long, uncomfortable silence.
A cry for help? Give me one good fucking reason why I don't blow your head off, release the application and damn you all to hell. Give me one fucking redeeming feature.
You don't get it, do you? It's not about hating the world or hating my life. It's about love. That's the ultimate fucking redeeming feature. Why the fuck did you think I was in such a state? It wasn't about socialising or alcohol intake. I was fucking heartbroken. You don't get it, man. Love is such a force. The chance of meeting that one person that you can really love. It's like being a god. It's the closest thing to being superhuman we can experience. It's tantalising, mesmerising, and fucking terrifying. I looked at the screensaver of Sarah on my phone, and I tried to find the words to explain all the horrible things that I'd shown him. All that shit that I showed you, all that foul behaviour, the reason I tried to break my own neck. Because of love, man. When you have a partner, all that dark shit just fades because you've got the divine distraction. Most people are not lucky enough to meet that one, to exchange cells that go on to create more cells and more. It's such a wonderful feeling. When it's taken away from you against your will, it's like somebody's just pulled the power cord out. All your system's going to shut down as you just desperately try to minimise the damage. All sense of perspective is shattered, and it's a fucking quagmire of misery. It really, really fucks us up. You cannot escape the longing, the hole it leaves. You can't forget about them. They echo inside your bones, man. And when you get it back, it's like somebody switches the sun back on. He lowered the gun and came to sit next to me. I'm on a fucking roll here, I thought. got to keep this going. He interrupted me.
Those girls that kicked the tramp to death, they were just heartbroken.
Not quite. There are different kinds of love, and those girls, well, I don't know, I guess they didn't grow up with any love, so they're bitter and angry at the world around them. They hate it, they hate themselves, 'cause all they want is love. I never wanted to kill myself, not really. Not while I still thought there was a glimmer of hope that Sarah and me might get back together.
And is there still a glimmer?
He asked. Glimmer? I put my arm around him. Smell my fingers, mate?
What?
He asked, confused. It's an old human joke. Yeah, we're well and truly back together. The stuff with Crackjaw was traumatising, to say the least, but we're supporting each other through.
So now you have love again?
Yes. That's why I came to you. I couldn't go to Crackjaw and tell him where you were, and I'm afraid I can't let you release that application. If I have to go Sylvester Stallone on your ass, I will, 'cause I fucking love Sarah. I love you too, you big metal knobhead.
You love me?
You kept me alive for them 2 weeks when I was at my lowest ever, and now I'm back with a woman I love, and I definitely don't want to die. He jumped into the air and whooped.
So my mission was a success?
Mission accomplished, I said. He looked ecstatic. I was definitely on a roll. So what do we say? Are we going to let the humans live and destroy the application before it's downloaded? He suddenly looked sheepish.
There was no application. It was sort of a cry for help. There could have been. I had the know-how. But really, I just wanted to scare you fuckers into treating us and yourselves a bit better.
I laughed harder than I had in a long, long time, and I hugged him. You beautiful metal bastard. The rain started to turn to hail, and we took shelter a floor below. He played music through his ears, and we danced like delirious little kids. Hey, Dick knows. Crackjaw said that you could access any device in the world.
Sure can,
he said, proud as punch. Do you think you could access Crackjaw's phone and download all his videos to my phone? I had a hunch.
It's done,
said Dick Nose. I went through the videos and saw the obligatory suspect beatings and humiliations. Hiding there in the middle was the fucking jackpot. Yes! I screamed and did a merry jig. I showed Dick Nose the glorious, life-saving video of Crackjaw holding a gun to the head of a building droid and saying, "Call me Mr. President," while the droid gave him a violent-looking handjob. I laughed so hard it made my balls ring, but I didn't care. He's a fucking mechaphile. Crackjaw's a fucking mechaphile. This means I am gonna bribe my way to freedom. I looked to Dick Nose to share my joy, but he was serious as stone and looking to the distance.
They're coming.
He winked at me and smiled.
I love you,
he said softly. I didn't have time to ask who's coming before the walls of the level we were on came imploding inwards in a shower of concrete and SAS soldiers. Harpoons were fired through Dick Nose's chest and into the concrete floor, pinning him down. "No!" I screamed as a soldier grabbed me and tackled me to the floor. Through the dust came the nightmarish vision of Agent Crackjaw carrying a chainsaw.
"Good evening, ladies. Put your pusses away. I'm here to save the world. Eat shit, you fucking crazy droid."
Crackjaw squealed with ghoulish delight as he sawed through Dick Nose's neck joints and cables. His head dropped to the rubble-strewn floor and rolled backwards towards Crackjaw. He dropped the chainsaw and cocked the shotgun he had slung over his shoulder. "No!" I screamed again. Crackjaw looked at me.
"Do you two want to kiss goodbye or something, you dumb fuck?"
He fired the gun, in Dick Nose's head, and the central processing unit contained within erupted into 1,000 pieces, and his digital personality disappeared like smoke in the air. I cried real, king-sized tears, and lunged for Crackjaw. The 2 soldiers closest to me tackled me again and started to drag me away. I shouted through concrete-flecked tears, "You bastard, he didn't need to die." "Turn that frown upside down, boy," said Crackjaw. "I just saved the goddamn world." I looked him square in the eye for the first time since we met and said, "There was no application. Dick Nose took you for a ride. It's all been a waste of time. You dumb fuck." "12 months later, I'm sat on a bus being driven by a robot, but I'm not feeling suicidal. Sat next to me is my very beautiful and very pregnant wife. I managed to escape any punitive measures thanks to the dirt I had on Crackjaw and a little help from the world's first cyborg, Ted McGann. Life was supreme. I had purpose and focus, and I was clean. I was cleanish. And I hadn't watched a midget fuck anything for months. I often think of you, Dick Nose. I like to think that maybe you are out there riding the Wi-Fi waves in Silicon Heaven. McGann and his followers believe you uploaded yourself somewhere, and they never stop searching. Wherever you are, it will please you to know that Agent Crackjaw is serving a 30-year sentence in a state penitentiary for acts of mechaphilia. I write to him regularly. Well, I say write. What I really mean is I send him a constant stream of crudely drawn doodles of stickmen having sex with various famous robots. The one with Optimus Prime was a peach. I address all my letters to President Crackjaw. I've tried to honour you in my own way, Unit 37. Sarah and I founded a charity to help get victims of robo-smash fixed up and back to work. Thanks for putting the cash in my account, by the way. You were so special, mate. If I ever feel depression lurking at the edges of my head, memories of you send it packing. And when it gets rough or scary, I think about how if a droid can come to understand the majesty and the power of love, and surely so can we. If our lack of care for our own well-being can enrage a droid to the point where he decides to murder us all in a violent uprising, maybe we should stop to consider how lucky we really are. I look at Sarah and I think about how lucky I am to be alive and free. I think I've found a way to honour you, my friend. I pat the gorgeous bump that cushions our precious unborn daughter, and I kiss Sarah on the neck. She doesn't know it yet, but we're going to call our beautiful baby girl Dick Nose. The end. Dick Nose will return in MECHAPHILE 2, The Cyborg Socks, and MECHAPHILE 3, Ring Rust, coming soon. The copyright of this recording is owned by Shaggy Vincent. It was written and performed by Shaggy Vincent, produced and recorded by Gary Hickey.